What if nothingness isn't empty at all, but the very reason we exist in the first place? I'm sure at one time or another you've asked yourself the oldest question in philosophy. Why is there something rather than nothing? If everything came from something, then what did that something come from? If God made the universe, then who made God? It feels like a loop with no exit, an endless regress. But what if the paradox only exists because we've been looking at it all wrong? That the answer isn't hidden in what came before existence, but in the nature of nothingness itself. Not emptiness, not darkness, but something I call anti-existence. A force so absolute, it's the absence of absence. And from that void, consciousness inevitably arises. And to experience itself, it fractures into you, me, and the entire universe. Let's get into why. Sit back, relax, and get ready for a real mind bender. Let me tell you how I came to this realization. I was on mushrooms, of course, and I reached a place where I completely dissolved. There was no me, no world, no separation. I didn't even remember what human was. I had no body, no story, no past. I wasn't me anymore. I was all that is. And it wasn't terrifying, it was bliss. Absolute, unending bliss. There was no time, no space, no limitation. Only this radiant, infinite beingness. I was omniscient. Any question I had was instantly understood. Not just one at a time. I could conceive of infinite questions simultaneously and explore them all completely in an instant. I felt like I lived for eons, roaming endlessly through knowledge, through love, through creation, yet none of it was bound by time. It was just the eternal unfolding of itself. And I giggled, I cried with joy. It was too much beauty to contain. Eventually something clicked. Oh yeah, I'm human. I've taken mushrooms. That's what's happening here. And I came back, gently, into a state that still glowed with aftershocks of eternity, still euphoric, still altered, but now back inside a body. Geometry was breathing on the walls, colours melting and reforming, the classic psychedelic experience. And I thought, why not ride it a little longer? So I lit a pipe of weed. That's when everything changed, because instead of drifting back into that bliss, it launched me somewhere darker, much darker. I started to realize, if this is all me, if I'm one with everything, and there's nothing outside of me, then I'm just an insane god hallucinating all of this. I'm a solitary consciousness tripping forever in a meaningless void, and the nihilistic dread set in fast. Imagine this for a moment. You're not just you sitting here now. You're the only thing that exists. No outside, no beyond, just you hallucinating everything into existence. And then it hits you. There's no escape, not even death. Because even if your life ended right now, consciousness doesn't switch off. It keeps going. You're still here, you're still on. And in that moment, I felt the true nightmare of being an immortal consciousness, insane and alone, tripping for all eternity. It was terrifying. It was suffocating, like the walls of reality had closed in and I couldn't breathe. I kept thinking, what's the point? What's the meaning of all of this? Why would I ever want to know this? Wouldn't it be better if there was just nothing? I was staring into eternity, and eternity was staring back, cold, empty, and merciless. It was the texture of dread, the sense that even death isn't an escape, that consciousness is always on. Yet, even in the middle of all that dread, I remember thinking to myself, this isn't really any stranger than any other story people tell themselves about reality. The Big Bang, a singularity exploding from nowhere for no reason whatsoever, or an authoritarian father figure creating the world just to judge you in the afterlife just because, or the idea that blind, meaningless chemical chaos just happens to arrange itself into Mozart, Shakespeare, psychedelics, and love. It's all absurd. Every explanation is absurd. And in fact, when you really sit with it, what most people consider sane and logical, the idea of a purely physical, chemical, accidental universe, is the most ridiculous of them all. And that's when the fear began to transform into something profound. And then it happened. The answer dropped into me like a remembering. Not new knowledge, not a clever thought, just absolute truth. And it was this: love is all things. Without love, God really would be insane. Just an endless consciousness dreaming itself, stuck in meaningless repetition. But love is what saves it. Love is what transforms eternity from a nightmare into something beautiful. It's the reason why God is known as love in every tradition, why psychedelic visions, mystical experiences, and near-death encounters always circle back to love. Because love isn't optional, it's not an accessory, it's the law. Existence itself made love law, to keep infinity from collapsing into madness. And in that moment, the dread melted away. I was filled with profound joy. I realized we look for meaning in the wrong places. We search outwards, but the original consciousness didn't look outwards. There was nothing outwards to look at, so it looked inwards, and so must we. If you want meaning, you won't find it in the outside world. You have to look within, because you are the meaning. We are the meaning. We are the love inside the void. This realization also solved another paradox. Think about the idea of heaven and hell, eternal bliss or eternal torment. Sounds simple, until you actually think about what eternity really entails. Picture hell, the flames, the demons, the torment. For the first 100 years it's agony. For the first 1,000 it's unbearable. But after 100 billion years, the flames stop burning. It would feel as normal as the air you're breathing right now. The demons, they're just pigeons in a city square. Your human life, your little 80 to 90 years, long forgotten, meaningless. Hell would just become normal existence. And heaven? Eternal bliss. Sounds amazing, but for how long? For the first 1,000 years, it's ecstasy. The first billion, maybe, it's divine joy. But stretch it out into 100 billion years, 1 trillion, and beyond. And that bliss stops being bliss. It flattens out. It becomes the background. You've done everything, thought everything, said everything, and still eternity stretches ahead. Eventually, you will do everything an infinite number of times. Do you see the problem? Heaven collapses into boredom, hell collapses into indifference, and eventually the two fold into each other. Heaven becomes hell, hell becomes heaven, an endless cycle of torment and ecstasy, sanity and madness, pleasure and numbness. They inevitably become indistinguishable from each other. That is the nightmare of eternity, and there's only one way out: forgetting, transformation. Consciousness has to fracture. It has to split. It has to reincarnate. To live as a human, then forget. To die and then be born again as an animal, an alien, a microbe, a star. To endlessly remember and forget. This isn't an accident. It's the only way eternity can bear itself. Without the cycle of remembering and forgetting, eternity would be static, and static eternity collapses into pointlessness. So God, consciousness, oneness, the singularity, whatever you want to call it, keeps splitting, keeps scattering, keeps weaving itself into endless forms. That's why existence looks the way it does, fractal, holographic, and recursive. Because everything is one mirror reflecting another mirror endlessly. Each reflection is an experience, a life, a story, a dream. It has to be this way because the only thing outside of existence is anti-existence. Now here's where the paradox resolves. Anti-existence and consciousness cannot exist without each other. Anti-existence is infinite absence, and infinite absence always gives rise to awareness. Because if absence is truly infinite, then every possibility has to emerge. And in a void of no time, no space, no matter, no energy, the only thing that can arise is something equally formless. Awareness. And awareness can't exist alone either, because it needs anti-existence as its womb, its ground, its contrast. They are inseparable, the primal binary, the first duality, the cosmic yin and yang. Anti-existence births consciousness. Consciousness affirms itself against anti-existence, and that affirmation, that spark of yes in the face of infinite nothing, that is love, and love is existence, and existence is everything that anti-existence isn't. And this is where everything clicks. Love is not just an emotion. That's just how the human nervous system experiences it. Love is existence itself, refusing to collapse into nothing. Look around. You can see it everywhere. Everyone craves love. Even the hardest, coldest, most broken people are driven by it. Even killers, tyrants, and monsters. Deep down, what they crave is love, and the lack of it is what drives their evil. And what is evil if not the opposite of living? Because love is the undercurrent of all life. When you fall in love, what happens biologically? For humans, it means union, reproduction, continuation of the species. Love is existence perpetuating itself. When you hold your child, what are you holding? The continuation of life that you yourself created. So when you feel love for them, you're feeling existence affirming itself. When you pour yourself into music or art or your passions, that is love. Love for creation, love for existence itself. Love is the drive behind everything. It's not optional, it's law. It's the reason mystical visions, near-death experiences, and psychedelic journeys all come back to love. Because at the root, existence is love. And when you align with that, you don't just understand it, you remember it. That remembering is the key. When it hit me on mushrooms, it wasn't like learning something new. It wasn't like solving a puzzle. It was like looking at my own reflection in the mirror. It's not new information, you just remember completely and totally, and it makes perfect sense. Duh, of course, how did I ever forget this? It was self-evident, obvious, something I've always known. Because it is me. I am this truth, and so are you. You don't need to understand it intellectually. When it clicks, you align with it instantly. Because it's not new information, it's remembering what you've always been. And in that remembering, everything makes sense. The terror of eternity collapses, the dread dissolves, and what remains is love. It's the most loving, humorous, beautiful, absurd thing you will ever know. So the next time you glimpse oneness, remember this. You are not just consciousness reflecting itself endlessly. You are existence celebrating itself against the void. You are love refusing to collapse into anti-existence. Existence and anti-existence, the dreamer and the void, both eternal, both inseparable. And the fact that you're here, right now, listening to these words, is proof enough that love keeps the infinite dream alive, forever. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this one. Please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel for more philosophical deep dives. Until next time.